Envy Thesis by yours truly, Nanika Edwards. A very short excerpt. This is actually a 3-page poem, but I'm just going to share about the first, let me see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 lines. It's a 3-page poem, but I'm just sharing a couple lines. Envy Thesis. Envy should be diagnosed as a mental illness and prescribed a mountainous dosage of curative pillness. Green is cuckoo crazy mean, and sanity gaunt lean. It makes people act weird, childish at heart, yet sporting silver beard. It disrupts the human family sphere. It morphs emotions into monsters and makes behavior and thinking go totally bonkers. Do you agree with me? Do you think that envy should be defined as a mental illness? If you look up an official definition of what a mental illness is, envy ticks off all of the boxes. And that's what led me to writing this poem. You know, the Bible talks about the love of money being the root of all kinds of evil, but it also puts envy in the same category. Like when you read certain passages about envy in the Bible, you realize that just like money is the root of all kinds of evil, envy is also considered the root of all kinds of evil. So envy is just as toxic as the love of money, and I think possibly even worse. But, who am I to say? Let the Bible have the final word on that. But just from my experience observing people, I realize that most people are just not happy with what they have. Have you ever read the Aesop's fable story of the dog and his bone? It's a picture of envy. There's a reason why that story was written however many centuries ago, or maybe not written, but it was part of oral tradition, oral storytelling tradition. You know, envy is as old as Cain and Abel, or older. It's as old as Satan rebelling against God. That's how old envy is, as far as we know, and according to the Bible. But I think that envy is a massive problem, and most people struggle with envy. And yes, I think it should be classified as a mental illness because people do such strange things when they're gripped by envy. And let me see if I can find a definition of mental illness so that you don't have to look for it yourself. Definition of mental illness. I'm just looking it up here on my online. Okay, according to let me see, psychiatry.org, mental illnesses are health conditions involving changes in emotion, thinking, or behavior, or a combination of these. Mental illnesses can be associated with distress and or problems functioning in social, work, or family activities. So let's go through those, right? This definition. And again, this is by psychiatry.org, American Psychiatric Association. And no, I'm not a doctor, I'm not a psychiatrist, I'm not a psychologist, I'm not a therapist, but I do look at a lot of videos on YouTube. I read up a lot. So while I may not be a formally trained expert, I think that what I know is quite substantial. Obviously, not as much as what an expert knows, but enough, I think, to make a pretty sound judgment call here. So, mental illnesses are health. Yeah, so let me repeat this definition by the American Psychiatric Association. Mental illnesses are health conditions involving changes in emotion, Does envy change people's emotions? Yes, it does. It changes people from being happy go lucky and contented to being angry, bitter, resentful, and a whole cocktail, a whole toxic cocktail of feelings that can lead to some very distressing circumstances, both for the person who feels envious and their rival or their perceived rival. Okay, so mental illnesses are health conditions involving changes in emotion, thinking. Yes, does it change thinking? Yes, it does. Because you may think one way about somebody, and then when you think they've done too well at something, or they've outdone you, or maybe a child or a relative in some way that you don't appreciate, your thinking about them can change. And I would add, in an irrational way. And then they add that mental illnesses are health conditions involving changes in behavior. So it could be any one of these: emotion, thinking, or behavior. So, of course, we know that behavior, how we act, begins with a thought. So it's interesting. They start with emotion. So a change in emotion can change how you think about something. And then when you change how you think about something, it can then alter how we act in connection to that thing that we're thinking about, or that person that we're thinking about. So does envy lead to an adjustment in behavior? Yes, it definitely does. When somebody is gripped by envy, they tend to go out of their way to provoke their rival, to be obstructionist, um, sometimes to imitate the person. You know, they may not like the person, but they may find themselves imitating the person, wanting to do what the person does, wear the same clothes that their rival does, have the same car, have the same kind of house, etc., etc. You know, it can get really extreme and very ridiculous. Now they say it could be any one of these or a combination. So envy, I think, can change your emotion, thinking, or behavior. And usually it changes all three, right? And mental illnesses can be associated with distress. Does envy cause distress? Think of the last time somebody was envious of you. Did they cause you distress? Or think of the last time you felt really envious of somebody. Did you cause them distress? Did you cause yourself distress? Okay. So it's associated with distress and or problems functioning in social, work, or family activities. Does envy cause problems functioning in social, work, or family activities? I'm willing to bet that the people listening to this video could probably list a whole string of examples of how envy in your life, whether you were the unfairly designated rival, or whether you are the envious abuser, I'm sure that you can cite problems in functioning in social, work, or family activities. And by the way, from my experience, when people are envious, they're the last ones to want to admit it. It doesn't matter if you confront them, and usually it doesn't make any sense confronting somebody who's envious with their envy. But a lot of times people lie pathologically about being envious. And, they lie in the sense that they'll say, no, I'm not envious. You'll tell them you're as green as a stink bug. And they'll say, no, I'm as white as snow. I like you. I don't have a problem with you. And then they'll go distress you. They'll continue distressing you. As you can tell, I'm speaking from experience, right? By the way, the American Psychiatric Association also says that mental illness is common. In any given year, more than 1 in 5 adults in the US has a diagnosable mental disorder. More than 1 in 5 adults. If we're talking about envy, I could tell you most people I know have no idea what to do with envy when it comes knocking on their door. As the Bible puts it, like the way God spoke to Cain when he was jealous of his brother Abel, God told him, sin is pounding on your door. It's knocking on your door. demanding entry, and you're supposed to keep it outside. That's how you're supposed to deal with envy, but most people don't do that. Okay, the American Psychiatric Association also says that this same organization also says that 1 in 20 adults has a serious mental illness. Personally, I think envy is a serious mental illness because it can lead to all manner of not only ill will but malicious action, including felonies. So I think it should be classified as a serious mental illness, not just excuse me, not just a mental illness, but a serious mental illness. This particular psychiatric association also says that this is on their website, right? 1 in 6 adults has a substance use disorder. 1 in 6 adults, including alcohol use disorder. Okay, well, I don't think envy really comes in there, but they also say that half of all chronic mental illness begins by age 14. Mental illness is treatable. Envy is treatable. Quote and unquote treatable. The vast majority of individuals with mental illness continue to function in their daily lives. Yep, that's most people with envy. They continue to function in their daily lives. But boy, do they cause a lot of bacchanal. As we say, bacchanal in Trini talk means confusion, mayhem. So, oh, there's a lot that they have here on their website that you can check out, you know. I could speak further, but I think I'll leave it right there because I don't want this to be too long. But they say that I don't want this to be too long, but they do say that mental health, I'm quoting from their website, right? Mental health is the foundation for emotions, thinking, communication, learning, resilience, hope, and self esteem. Mental health is also key to relationships, personal and emotional well being, and contributing to community or society. Mental health is a component of overall well being. It can influence and be influenced by physical health. Okay, so let me list the things they say that mental health is the foundation for: emotions, thinking, communication, learning, resilience, hope, and self esteem. Envy affects all of those things. It affects our emotions, as I said before, it affects thinking, it definitely affects communication. You ever had somebody who you know, usually somebody close, right? But it doesn't have to be somebody close, it could be any arbitrary person. You ever had somebody make these arbitrary, sidewinding comments like a little slithery snake? They're probably envious of you. Envy does affect communication, it affects learning. Nobody would want to learn from someone that they're envious of, so it does affect learning, at least on that very simple level. They say that mental health is the foundation for resilience. Does envy affect resilience? Yes, I think it does. Because when you're envious, you waste so much energy on being hostile and just being toxic. I don't think that lends itself to resilience. Mental health is the foundation for hope and self esteem. Envy basically tells someone, I have no hope of achieving what that other person achieved. Sometimes there's no hope because people are just too lazy to do what their rival did to achieve the things that they've achieved. You know, a lot of people think that gifting, providence, that these things just fall out of the sky, but that's not true. You know, but a lot of people think in that irrational kind of way. And mental health is a foundation for self-esteem. And envy basically tells somebody, you're not good enough. I don't think I'm good enough. That's what people who are envious start telling themselves. The rival isn't telling them that, you know, but the envious person starts telling themselves these things. And here's the final thing I'll point out. Mental illness is Here's something else. Okay, so I'm kind of going further down, just picking out some things that they're saying here. You can check out this website for yourself. Just do a Google search for definition of mental illness, and you'll find this, I think. Um, but they also say Many people who have a mental illness do not want to talk about it, but mental illness is nothing to be ashamed of. People who are envious do not like talking about it because it makes them feel ashamed. Deep down in their heart, they know it's that being envious kind of makes you a very rotten person, especially when you act upon it. So people don't like to talk about it. That's why they lie and say that they're not envious. And so I'll end there, but I think I'll end by reading my envy thesis. I call it the name of this poem is Envy Thesis because it's 3 pages long, and I make a very solid case for envy being diagnosed as a mental illness. But I guess maybe a psychologist or psychiatrist would say envy in and of itself is not traditionally defined as a mental illness. We know that, but it does actually turn up as an engine of certain mental disorders. For example, narcissism is driven by envy, right? Narcissism, something that is core to narcissism, as far as I understand it, is envy, right? Narcissists tend to struggle with envy. Anyway, I could make a whole other case right that there about narcissism, envy, and how widespread envy and narcissism are, I think, in my humble opinion, but I'll leave it right there. Let's just start with envy should be diagnosed as a mental illness. So here's my envy thesis again. Envy thesis, an excerpt by yours truly. Envy should be diagnosed as a mental illness and prescribed a mountainous dosage of curative pillness. Of course, no pill can fix that. That's a spiritual issue, right? It is spiritual. It's not just psychological. It's spiritual. In fact, the Bible says that envy is demonic. So let me start over. Envy should be diagnosed as a mental illness and prescribed a mountainous dosage of curative pillness. Green is cuckoo crazy mean and sanity gaunt lean. It makes people act weird, childish at heart, yet sporting silver beard. It disrupts the human family sphere. It morphs emotions into monsters and makes behavior and thinking go totally bonkers. And then I continue on until I get to the end, about 3 pages, and I wouldn't be surprised if I lengthen this a bit more. Anyway, it's at 3 pages right now. This poem will most likely be available in my book, A Poet's Proverbs, Book 9, which I expect to be released sometime in early 2025. As long as I feel inspired, or I just thoughts come to mind, or I observe something and I want to put it down in, capture it in poetry or in some kind of witty or, insightful type saying, then as long as I have enough of those, every 3 months I tend to publish A Poet's Proverbs. So now I'm at book 9. Book 9 will be released in early 2025, and then the next one would be, let me see. I would give myself January, February, March to do the next book, and then sometime in April or May, that book would be released. So that's it. I hope you enjoyed this. I hope this was thought-provoking for you. I know it's kind of, what to call it, may sound a little out there that I'm saying envy should be diagnosed as a mental illness. And I know that people, especially if you're given to envy, you're going to want to protest quite vigorously against this. But like I said, envy ticks all the boxes for mental illness. I think it is a mental illness, and it's also a spiritual illness. And so it's not just what's happening in your head, it's what's happening in your heart. It's all about demonic influence, and like I said, the Bible says it's demonic. And truly, when somebody is absolutely overtaken by envy, they do act like a devil. Think of what a devil is like. Think of what evil is like. Envy is pure evil. It really is. Anyway, that's it. Let me come down from my soapbox now. I just needed to get that off my chest. But I hope that this was interesting for you, food for thought. If you enjoyed this video, thank you so much for giving it a thumbs up. Thank you for sharing this video with people that you think may find it interesting, or even who you think need to hear this. Like if they are struggling with envy, or some type of comparison issue, which envy is at its core. And as I say, comparison is the thief of joy. So envy is the worst thing to allow entry into your heart. When envy is knocking on your door, and envy does not knock politely, it pounds and it says, "Let me in, let me in," "Let me in." You have to keep that door bolted. Get some wood, pound down some nails, and keep it bolted like you would if you expected a hurricane to be coming, or some type of tornado to be passing through. Keep your door bolted against that beast, because once it's in, it's very difficult to kick out. It's very difficult to evict and to kick out. And I have some poems about that as well. Yes, I write a lot about envy because I find it so disruptive, unnecessarily so. But anyway, that's it. I hope that you enjoyed this video. If you did, again, thank you for giving it a thumbs up. And if you'd like to get notifications when I release new videos, then please subscribe. Until next time.